Here we go with chapter 7. The next morning, Martine woke feeling as if she was going to the dentist. For a long time she lay there with her eyes screwed tightly shut because the way she could pretend that none of it had happened. Her home had not burned down, and her mom and dad were not gone forever, and she had not been sent to the wilds of Africa to live with a total stranger. Finally, when she could avoid it no longer, she opened her eyes. A vast sky of the most incredible blue filled her vision. The clock on the bedside table said 6:05 a.m. Right on cue, an orange-breasted bird fluttered onto the thatched beam outside her window and began to sing a song of pure happiness. Propping herself up on one elbow, Martine gazed out over the game reserve. The waterhole was draped with early morning mist and streaked with gold from the sun. A dozen or so elephants were splashing around it, wallowing in the mud and spraying each other with their trunks. Zebras were grazing nearby. She shook her head in wonder. The scene didn't take away the anguish in her heart, but it definitely helped. Even so, she walked downstairs on leaden feet. Her grandmother was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug. When Martine entered, she stood up quickly and said, "Good morning, Martine. I hope you all slept well." Her voice shook slightly as though she was nervous. Before Martine could speak, she went on hurriedly. "There are boiled eggs in the pan and some bread in the toaster and anything else you might need on the kitchen table. On the counter over there, you'll find a lunchbox containing sunscreen, yellow queen peaches from the garden, and some cheese and chutney sandwiches. I have to go out now to feed the young elephant, but I'll be back at 7:30 to take you to school." Martine was still stammering a thank you when the door banged behind her grandmother and a gust of cool air blew in. It wasn't an apology, but Martine already knew that was all she was going to get. The dentist feeling returned on the 15-minute drive to school, most of which Martine spent squirming in her new uniform, hating the skirt, not knowing what to say to her grandmother, and it didn't diminish when Gwen Thomas drove her through the gates of Caracal School and when she had the hordes of healthy, confident children who were going to be her new schoolmates. They were every shade of honey, cappuccino, and chocolate. None of them were the color of Martine, that was to say, sort of an unhealthy gray-white. After her grandmother had left her at the door of the headmistress's office with a gruff but kindly "Have a good day. Tendy or I will collect you at 4," she stood pressed up against the wall, trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. "Be with you in a mo," called a voice when she knocked. Martine could hear someone speaking on the phone. While she waited, she took in her surroundings. Her old school had resembled a concrete prison with a blacktop playground and peeling beige corridors reeking of disinfectant. The bathrooms had been covered with graffiti. This place didn't even look like a school. It was more like a lovely campsite. Log buildings made of glowing chestnut timber were scattered around the grounds, laid with emerald lawns and huge trees. Behind a wooden fence, a swimming pool sparkled. "You can close your mouth now. We still have the same boring old lessons that you had back home. You know, long divisions, dead kings, punctuation." The expressions on Martine's face must have said it all, because the Cleopatra-haired vision standing in the doorway wearing wooden parrot earrings and long purple dress laughed merrily and pulled her into the room at it. "Only joking. Our lessons are, of course, extremely interesting. I am Elaine Rathmore, the headmistress, and you must be Martine. Welcome." Once she had gotten used to Miss Rathmore's sense of humor, Martine couldn't help liking the headmistress, who was down to earth. Miss Rathmore explained that despite appearances, the Caracal was a school like any other, but it did have a strong focus on the environment. All the buildings were heated with solar energy, many school projects concerned conservation, and the cafeteria served only organic meals. They went through a copy of the rules together, and Miss Rathmore explained the schedule. Then they went into a tour of the grounds. Apparently sports were a big deal at this Caracal school, which had produced many champions. There was a gym with a climbing wall and a sports field that stretched for several acres. "If you have a gift of sports, or anything else for that matter, we'll find it," Miss Rathmore promised. Martine, who perfectly knew well she didn't have a gift for sports, had in fact been hopeless at every sport she'd ever tried. She thought back to Grace's words. "You have a gift, just like your forefathers said." What was that gift? What did it have to do with science, math, art, or even music? or something she couldn't even guess at. Be careful, Grace had cautioned her. The gift could be a curse, blessing, or a curse. Make your decision wisely. What kind of gift came with a warning? Lucy Van Heed, one of our talented perfects, Miss Rathmore was saying. Lucy is in Miss Faulkner's class with you, Martine. Martine, we haven't sent you to sleep already, have we? Martine blinked. An elegant blonde girl was standing in front of her, holding out her hand. Martine shook it and was surprised to find that it was ice cold. Judging by Lucy's caramel tan, she spent every spare hour surfing or sunning herself on the beach. After asking Lucy to take Martine under her wing, show her the ropes, and give her a very special Caracal School welcome, Miss Rathmore went on her way in a billowing cloud of purple, leaving Martine with her glamorous new classmate. "Geez, but you're white," Lucy commented as soon as the headmistress was out of earshot. "Where are you from, Iceland?" "England," muddled Martine. If she was awkward and self-conscious to begin with, now she felt a million times worse. Lucy giggled. "I'm kidding," she said, giving Martine a friendly punch that almost knocked over. "Come on, we're late for Miss Faulkner's class, but at break I'll introduce you to the rest of the gang." At lunchtime, Martine discovered that the gang which Lucy had referred to was the Five-Star Gang, a group of the most popular kids at school. Along with Lucy, there was her twin brother Luke, also blonde and good-looking with caramel skin, Scott Henderson, who was driven to school each morning in a red Lamborghini, the school rugby captain, Peter Brook, and a black boy named Korza, which, if you were English, you couldn't make that clicking sound. It was just pronounced Korza. Washington, who was the son of the local mayor. They all had the latest haircuts and the way of wearing the uniform that made them seem like designer clothes. Most kids idolized them, and over the coming weeks, Martine noticed that even teachers were giving them special treatment. During breaks, Lucy introduced Martine to the Five-Star boys and several other children. On the whole, they seemed a friendly bunch, and a couple of them went out of their way to make sure she felt included. Martine sat in the sunshine, eating her cheese and chutney sandwich, smiling and nodding, and wondering how it was possible to be in such a perfect place, surrounded by laughing children, and still feel like the loneliest, most miserable girl on earth. All the old feelings that she had back at her old school came flooding back. It was not that she just felt shy and clumsy. She didn't fit in at all. None of these things were talked about. Surfing, hair gel, music interested her. But what did interest her, Martine didn't know. Reading, she supposed, and the White Giraffe. She was very, very interested in the White Giraffe. It was while she was thinking about this that she noticed a small figure sitting alone under a tree in the distance. "Oh, him," Lucy said with a distaste when Martine asked what the child was doing there. Her nose wrinkled. "He's either deaf, stupid, or a nutcase. We can't work out which." Over the next few days, Martine learned that the boy's name was Ben and that he was of mixed race, with a Zulu father and an Indian mother, who was a dancer. Martine was small for her age, but he looked as thin as she and not much taller. If you looked at Ben closely, you could see that he was far from weak. His brown arms and legs were strong and wiry, but most children didn't take enough interest in Ben to find that out. He was an outcast. Hardly anyone ever spoke to him. This was partly because in the 3 years he had been at the school, Ben had never uttered a syllable. The teachers had long since accepted that he was mute, mainly because he answered their questions on bits of paper and was consistently top of the class. But the Five-Star Gang, who claimed they had once seen him holding complete normal conversation with his father in the parking lot, was a source of both irritation and amusement. Every lunchtime he would take his backpack and disappear to the farthest corner of the school playing fields. There he would sit under a tree and read a book. His nickname was Buddha Ben because he had the habit of burning incense and never retaliated if you stole a book or forced him to do his homework. Martine found it upsetting that everyone was so mean to him. She made up her mind to try to befriend him, but the first afternoon an opportunity presented itself. Lucy waved her over and asked what she was up to, and she couldn't bring herself to admit that she was on her way to talk to Bonkers Ben, as Lucy had called him. The next day she put it off for some reason, and after a while she stopped thinking about Ben altogether. And that's the end of chapter